To talk of the nation, the week has witnessed chilling incidents of murders and theft where victims have been attacked in their homes. Others have been robbed in broad daylight in their vehicles. And crossing over to the geopolitics, Uganda was a subject of debate in the European Union Parliament, where Uganda's democracy and human rights record was debated. And related to that, the Uganda Communications Commission also issued a statement warning media houses, especially radio and TV stations, against hosting guests to discuss the outcome of the January 15th presidential and parliamentary election results because they do not have the mandate to do so. Now, this will be the focus of our discussion tonight on Talk of the Nation. And joining me is Timothy Chemonges, a policy analyst, as well as the executive director of the Center of Policy Analysis. Good evening to you, Timothy. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Mildred. Good to be here, and good evening to the viewers.
All right, let us start with the worrying situation of security. I know you're not a security expert per se, but I believe you can appreciate the worsening security situation because it concerns all of us. We have seen the situations in Kampala. Women being, killed and attacked and killed in their homes. We have seen reports of people being, robbed in broad daylight on borders, others being, their vehicles being hit with, stones and windscreens. What do you make of this kind of situation in our country right now?
Thank you, Mildred. This is a very unfortunate situation that is happening in the country, and hopefully we can be able, the security agencies can be able to address this. And probably the underlying factors, there are quite a number of reasons, probably also looking at each incident in isolation. But it demonstrates an underlying problem as a country that probably may want to deal. But specifically just looking at, we are very fresh from the elections, and my reading really in terms of how we've, both the government and opposition, have attempted to utilize the informal groups, gangs, in their political campaigns, sometimes aimed at undermining the opponents. Also, we've seen the famous efforts to ensure that there is a bit of infiltration in the ghettos and in the informal setting as a measure to curtail the force that had been coming up, especially supporting the opposition. I think those sort of efforts greatly emboldened the youths and some of the gangs that have been participating in this sort of criminal works. And as a result, and many of this, the media you've demonstrated and shown, where you see the gangs wearing sometimes red t-shirts, some in yellow, and all these colors, clearly supporting different parties, and they attack the public. So I think that that effort by the political wing has greatly affected how the dynamics in the country looks like. And unfortunately, the elections are done, and these groups don't have anything to do. And so understanding that they are now emboldened to understand that they do have support from the different sects, especially those in government. And so that sort of emboldenment gives them the courage to continue and perpetuating the sort of criminality that they do.
But we did speak to the police and Luko Isijide, to be specific, and he did assure the nation that interventions are being put in place to ensure that this is capped. But let us cross over to the geopolitics. Now, the lawmakers at the European Union Parliament expressed serious concern about the post-election environment, particularly the treatment of the opposition leaders, and they signaled out Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, the NUP leader. And of course, we did see that several reports surrounding the situation at his home, the assault on his family members. And so what does this mean to Uganda's democracy, and how does the world view us in this perspective?
So you see, the position really by the European Parliament is not binding necessarily. They are more persuasive and they are diplomatic in nature. And more consequences really extend towards how the two countries and institutions interact. And sometimes the sort of these decisions affect that arrangements, including the funding, including other support and bilateral engagement that the two countries have. But I think that it is important that institutions beyond Uganda come out to give an assessment of what's happening, and I think it's important to listen to what other parties have to say about the exercise we've just concluded. The others may be biased, others may be objective, but it is very important to have these positions for the sake of ensuring that we're able to improve our electoral practices, our electoral laws, but also ensuring that whereas as a country we are sovereign, it is not absolute, that we live in a geopolitical world where sovereignty is not absolute, and that you have other countries, other players who could weigh in, not necessarily to threaten the sovereignty, but to give a perspective on what is happening. And it could range from the politics, but also going into aspects like debt and many other things. Okay, now also the other highlight that I would like us to discuss a little bit as we conclude this conversation is the Uganda Communications Commission coming out to put a ban on radios and television stations from hosting pundits who are going to be talking about the aftermath of the election. And it begs the question, if the media that is meant to do the accountability is stopped from doing its role, then where does it face? What then does it have to do? I thought, after reading the guidance by UCC, I thought that it was a misguided direction, but nonetheless they do hold the mandate, to the extent that the Constitution is very clear in terms of freedom of expression, but also freedom of individuals to air out their issues. But also, more importantly, we've just come out from a very competitive elections where we've had it characterized with many things, including the internet shutdown, which blurred and covered so many things that the country didn't get to witness. And therefore, I tend to probably read that this also seems to extend what could have, just to ensure that they curtail any sort of conversation as to inflame the situation. But I think that it fundamentally goes against the constitutional guidance, but also our legal framework of ensuring that the citizens are able to know, they're able to understand what is happening, but also people are able to air out their experiences, their concerns, notwithstanding that we do have legal institutions, the courts, that should be able to adjudicate these matters. Okay, well, thank you, Timothy. I'm afraid our time is fast spent. I'm hoping that we can have a part 2 of this conversation. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Timothy Chemonges, a policy analyst and the executive director of the Center for Policy Analysis, of course, helping us to understand the atmosphere or the events that have been shaping the week. And with that, we will end the conversation there and move into the world of sport.